Life is different when your first NDE happens in utero. Let's face it, there's no before life experience to compare with the after life experience. You're just not like other kids. Now, add to that an NDE near your sixth birthday. Growing up is just not like other children your age. In our interview with Sara Drake, she describes her second NDE and the unique childhood that resulted. She goes on to describe how we can increase our vibratory levels in preparation for the ascension process. Pause. It's not what you think. I'll recap it at the end of the video in case you miss it during the interview. I find her insights into how the developing brain affects our lens through which we interpret our experiences to be fascinating. Here's her bio. Sara Drake has her degree in social work. She specializes in how the brain development affects our behavior and understanding. She specializes in child psychology and grounds herself with statistical research. Sarah's had two NDEs and one shared death experience, which opened her up to many spiritually transformative experiences throughout her life. That being prophetic dreams, heightened intuition, angelic interactions, and teachings from light beings. Stay tuned. Here is our fascinating interview with Sara Drake. Hi, Sara. So nice to have you here on the Afterlife Files. Welcome.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you reaching out.
I have been fascinated by your story, and well, let's just jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about the two NDEs and the SDE that you had that has really profoundly impacted your life.
Well, yeah, it definitely has. It kind of has run my life because even though I did not have the cellular level flashback experience of my first NDE, which happened when my mother was in a plane crash when she was 4 months pregnant with me. But I just knew about the plane crash. I didn't know I died in utero until I had the cellular level flashback in my 40s. But when I was six, same mountain range, by the way, I was on my sixth, or right around my sixth birthday, I was in a car accident where the car rolled down the mountain.
Ooh.
The other two people in the car, which was the driver and my 2.5-year-old brother, were thrown out of the car because the windows were open. It was the summer. And in those days, because we're talking 1962, in those days, people helped each other and you didn't have to be scared, right? So apparently, a lot of people stopped, got my brother, immediately rushed him to the hospital, got the driver, puts her in a car. They're getting ready to go to the hospital. And the driver goes, "Well, where's Sarah?" And they're like, "We didn't see anybody else." And she goes, "Well, there's a little girl." So there was only one car left. So the man in that car went looking for me. Now, I asked the driver, who was a dear friend of the family's, how long I was in the car, because I was actually thrown to the floor of the back seat, how long I was in the car before they got me. And it was she said 30 to 45 minutes. So that's how long I was there. Um, and the short version of that experience is my perception, without going into the details of how the car accident happened. My perception is confusion. That was my first awareness. I'm confused. What's going on? And then the next thing my perception is I'm looking at the bottom of the driver's seat in the car. Well, it's only that big, so I was not underneath it, but I think
Hmm.
my consciousness was underneath it. And then nothing. Everything's blank. No memory. Have never been given that memory. Um, I come back to consciousness hovering over the car of the people who found me. And I look to the driver and I'm thinking, why isn't our friend, I said her name, of course, but I won't say that here out of protecting her. Why isn't our friend in the driver's seat? And I look to the passenger side and there she's sitting. And I'm like, why is she sitting there? And I look back at the driver and I see it's a man. It's like, who's that man? And wait a minute, this isn't our car. Whose car is this? And then I look in the back seat and there's a woman holding my body. And my body is crying. And she's, trying to soothe me. And I'm like, who is that woman? And why am I crying? And the next thing I know, I'm in the body crying.
Um,
At the hospital, it turned out I had a broken leg and needed stitches in two areas, only two, but four total. Um, I'm furious. I am so, so angry. And here's the literal thought, because they sent me back again. I was
Oh,
furious, 6 years old, and furious that they sent me back again. I knew that I was not allowed to tell anybody about my experience. Now, as an adult, knowing what I know as a social worker and having seen the history of mental health in this country, they would have locked me up if I'd talked about it because they didn't understand, right? We didn't have anybody studying NDEs.
not in 1962.
Yeah. So I just remember being angry, and I had a mature awareness, older than 6 years, an understanding of human dynamics. Now, I may have had that before, but I don't remember. I know I had it from that point forward, and I was able, a lot more effectively than today, I think, I was able to tune in to people's motivations.
Mm.
And understand compassion at a very deep level. Now, that one I think I have before this happened because I was called at the age of 3 the Pied Piper of abandoned children. I would always work to include the children who were left out. So something was going on there, but that's the only information I have as to how people perceived me at
So,
3.
Sarah, um, you said that you knew that you weren't supposed to tell your story.
Right.
Uh, did somebody tell you? Is that just a general knowing? How did that come to you?
Well, it is all supposition, Scott.
Okay.
All right. I do have a very analytical mind. I was a statistician at one time. I guess technically still am. Um, so all of this is based on my understanding because of all the experience I've had since then. Angels were, or light beings were teaching me through dreams about how physicality worked. They'd answer questions, stuff like that. That kind of stopped or slowed down as I got older, but there was a whole lot during my youth in terms of providing information. And what makes sense to me, because I remember at 8 years of age, sitting at a bay window at night when I was supposed to be asleep, looking up into the sky and using mental telepathy, because that's how we communicated. We didn't have to talk, saying, come back and get me, guys. I don't like it here. I don't want to be here anymore. So, aliens, who knows? Light beings, that's how I experience them. But who knows? There was something other than physical humans. So, maybe them. I don't know. I've had angel experiences that were witnessed by other people, which was nice because then I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy, right? Um, but that's what makes sense to me. And when I remembered the first NDE when I was in my 40s, it was a huge oval with sort of a humanoid shadow within the light, radiant light that it emanated, um, interacted and talked with me. So my experience is there's multiple levels of expression. This is one of them. Being physical is one of them. So what makes sense to me, what's logical is that one of those light beings that's not physical said, don't talk to people about it.
So with that, having had a childhood NDE, um, did that make you different than the other kids growing up?
Oh, I was very much an outsider. Yes. Um, I could never be superficial. It doesn't feel honest to me. And in fact, my highest value, being a social worker, clinical social worker, we talk about values a lot, right?
Right.
Because our values drive us in terms of human expression. My highest value is integrity, which includes honesty, being impeccable with my word, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and a lot of that is because of those childhood experiences, because it never felt right to be anything other than that. I had not learned the art of, I can't think of the name, when you're choosing your words wisely when I was a child. So it didn't always work well, but I learned. So mostly, mostly. But yeah, I just knew. And
So you have a really clear memory of that first NDE when you were 6 years old in the car
well,
accident.
technically the second NDE, but the first one I remembered.
Oh,
I always remembered the details, always. So it's
And
been
and I'm
what?
sorry to have interrupted you. Was there more that you wanted to tell about what happened when you were um, out of body, I guess would be a
Well, I have had numerous from my perspective, because I'm just amazed that you guys want my story. But one of the podcast interviewers does a form of, I guess, Ericksonian hypnosis, some kind of hypnosis. And he did on the podcast, some kind of closed eye hypnosis type of thing. And what came out to look at that period of time, 30, 40 minutes of when I was not consciously aware. And what came out of that is basically guidance on how to cope with the numerous abuses and traumas of my life. So, how to look at things, how to interpret things, that type of, I guess, because that's what I would do as a therapist. So that type of, here are coping skills to navigate what's coming up for you.
uh,
At this age, looking back, I'm like, because nobody likes going through trauma or abuse. Um, but looking back it really helps me understand what my clients are going through as a social worker. So, and I grew and learned from it. So while it wasn't fun, I win because I learned and grew as a soul. Not that it's a competition, but it's like, to me, that's the purpose of life, is to learn and grow and become a better self or a better expression. I was angry from that 6-year-old experience and having been sent back a second time, and had a lot of suicidal ideation when I would get overwhelmed or frustrated probably until I had cancer, which was in my 50s. And but it was a process of easing out of that. And what I realized is our job is to develop ourselves and raise our vibrational frequency to as close as possible to that now I go up, but who knows, it's another dimension from my perspective. That's what makes sense to me. From that vibrational frequency, and bring as much of that vibrational frequency to here to help lift the planet vibrationally.
So
um
how do you shift your vibration to that higher vibratory level?
Well, I think every spiritual teacher has shared that information from the beginning of recorded history. Um, One, I like what somebody I studied with back in the 80s said, because it's super simple. I like simple. Take care of yourself and take care of others. Don't hurt
Nice.
yourself and don't hurt others. Use everything as an opportunity for growth of learning and be of service to yourself and others. There's got to be balance.
That's nice.
I love it. And I think it is a modern day encapsulation of what every spiritual teacher has taught love. But we think humans tend to think of love as an emotional interaction. My experience from having been in that other vibratory frequency when I had my NDEs,
Yeah.
we are love. It's an essence, which is why I wanted to die. I didn't like being, I never acted on my suicidal ideation. It was just like my escape hatch for stress. Not the most effective one, but
No, but
because
I
it
could
could
see
have,
when things are bad, you'd want to go back to some place that was love, was wonderful.
yeah, it's like pure love, essence of love. It was like swimming in love and being love. And love, I define the words I use to describe that is unconditional acceptance without judgment.
Oh, and that's nice too.
Now, that doesn't mean here we don't have discernment. We do get to have discernment. If I don't like your behavior, it's okay for me to go, you enjoy your life way over there. I'll enjoy mine way over here. We don't have to play in the same playground. That's discernment, but it's not my place to judge. Especially as a therapist, I know that behavior comes from life experiences and what you bring into the life that we don't know about. Because how do you measure it, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many things that are about growth. That's my philosophy. It's all about growth and learning. I don't have to jump into the playground of people whose behavior I don't want to be around. But it is my job to lift my own vibration and share that with anybody who wants to experience it.
I'm thinking of tuning forks,
Yes, perfect.
that if you're vibrating at that level of love and acceptance and not judgment and discernment, that those around you will do the same.
Eventually. I call it planting seeds, right?
Right.
When we have just from a physiological aspect, the way our brain works is we have an experience, we get inputs about that experience, we check the history files, and then we analyze it, prefrontal cortex, um, to determine what decisions we're going to make about that, how we're going to interpret it. So everybody's experience and belief systems are about their own interpretation, which is faulty. All of us. It's faulty because it's a limited window. We can't see 360 degrees. This was actually shown to me in a dream when I was 14.
Yeah.
We all we look at truth through our own window. This is a very short version of bottom line of the dream, okay? One of the ones that the light beings taught me in. We all look through our window, and our window can be super small or huge. It may have distortion or not. It may have debris on it or not. So, all variations possible. All of that's based on our childhood interpretations, because what we know at this point of research is that our beliefs and expectations of the world are developed by the time we're 7 or 8 years old. Research also shows that at least 85% of our thoughts are unconscious or subconscious, which means guess what's running your life? The subconscious, the beliefs, and they're from your 7, 8 year old child or younger.
Yep.
Decisions made by that. And if you've been around children, it's like, yeah, they have a lot of wisdom. There's a reason for the saying, out of the mouths of babes, right? They do have innate wisdom that we forget about as we get older, but they're still kids, and it's an extremely limited window of how they interpret the world. So, and by the way, that's what any form of personal growth therapy, because you can work with a shaman, you can work with an outside the box practitioner, as well as the more there. And I do have a full mace. I'm a full mesa carrier, so I am also trained as a shaman. But all of them, all the different techniques are about what makes sense to you where you are in this moment. So you go to the person who practices what makes sense to you, because that opens you up for growth and learning, right? It's all about expanding that window and understanding we perceive the world through a very limited perspective, because that's how our brains work.
And our job is to open up that window
Yeah.
and realize the parts of it that are true and discard the parts that
Well,
really don't work.
we cannot perceive the truth. We're not, the physical body's not designed that way. It doesn't work that way. We see truth relative to us, how we perceive it with our eyes, our ears, our gut, our heart, our emotions. All of that is input that defines how we interpret what we experience here in the physical world. Again, this is my interpretation, my
And,
understanding.
and does that explanation um, apply to uh, persons that have had near-death experiences,
It's
or because they get kind of a big shot of look at
bigger window,
a bigger window, like right now, boom.
but it's still interpretation. So, whatever experience I have in those other vibrational frequencies, I still interpret them with this brain. This brain is limited by my vocabulary, what I have studied or not,
Yep.
right? So
Right.
my interpretation is based on my understanding. That's why I keep saying this is my interpretation, my understanding of how it works. Someone with a bigger window and more or different experiences would interpret it differently because they're a different person.
And certainly cultural influences and
There's all kinds, and just bottom line, your vocabulary. How do you use language? We use words. So if
well,
I have a huge vocabulary, which I have a decent one, but I don't think it's huge by any stretch, the bigger your vocabulary, the more able you are to describe things because you see more subtleties. Like when I had cancer, the whole thing is be a survivor. I looked up the word survivor and it's like, yeah, you do accomplish your end goal, but it's with a lot of hard work. I looked at that and I'm like, I'm too tired and I'm too old to work that hard. So I'm going straight to thrive.
I don't,
You know what the
that's
difference is?
that's funny. Yes, please tell me.
Thrive is also accomplishing a goal, but every step of the way, you're making the best of the experience. You're taking the best. So, same steps, had allergic reactions to some of the drugs. That wasn't fun. They give you what's called a Neulasta shot after your 24 hours after your chemo, and that helps your bone marrow create more white blood cells faster. right?
I'll believe you. Okay.
Well, you can look it up on the internet, so it's there. But in my case, I had an allergic reaction and it felt like my bones were going to break. So I literally stayed in bed for 3 days after that shot
Ooh.
in a lot of pain. Wasn't fun. But what I did, I put on some music that had been programmed in my system as soothing and calming, and um, would just focus on my breathing and meditation. Still in pain, but that eased it on a, and I probably disassociated or separated a bit from the pain, the physical body. I don't know. I wasn't observing. I was experiencing it, right?
Yep.
It, it's still thriving. It was the best I could do in the moment.
So this experience that you had in utero and when you were 6 opened you up to all different kinds of experiences through your life.
Yes.
Um, and talk a little bit about the ones that have really impacted your view of the world.
Um, oh, that's a good one. So, I always knew there was more than physical. Always knew that. I always knew that we didn't need to use our mouths to communicate. I always, I understand it better now because of the research since the 60s that I've studied, but at a child's level of understanding, I always knew that we were limited in our perception. I always knew that religion was a personal choice to help make sense of what we didn't understand. So I always knew that religion was meaningless outside of that structure. There is no truth or true religion. There is no true religion. It's a window of understanding the perception of what we see as truth because we can't see that our brains are not capable of it. Um, our brains are only capable of conscious of about 8 pieces of information at any given time. This is again based on research. The 85 to 95% of subconscious thoughts, depending on how they measure thoughts, we have anywhere from 8,500 to 120,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts running your life that you're unaware of. So I didn't understand it in the language that I understand it now, but I always understood all that. I understood that compassion and kindness are the important things. I understood that helping others, being of service, was important. And I was doing that from a very young age because that was my inner urge, being of service. Now, I had to learn how to balance it and take care of me too,
Hmm.
right? That's a big lesson for most of us. But and I'm probably missing out on a few things as to how it influenced me because that requires introspection and comparison to before and after. And I didn't really, because of the in utero, I didn't really have a before. So when I was 8 years old, interestingly enough, it's like, yeah, we do pick our parents because my dad had his family when he was a young man in the late 30s had readings by Edgar Cayce.
Really?
Yeah, his younger sister had epilepsy. Of course, they had no clue what epilepsy and how it worked back in those days because we're talking the 1930s. And my grandfather had built a business and was doing financially well, and kept going from doctor to doctor to doctor, not getting results for his daughter. And somebody suggested go see Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet. So
Yep.
he did. And actually, those readings and all the communication between, I think it was Hugh Lynn Casey primarily at that point, and my grandfather are all at ARE in Virginia Beach for anyone who wants to, lot of information about that. But I was given the book, There is a River by Thomas Segru, which is the only biography written, one, while Casey was still alive, and two, interviewing Casey and I think the secretary's name was Agnes. I don't remember that. His wife, his kids, the only one written while he was alive. So, fascinating story for people into that. Um, I was given that book to read when I was 8 years old, and it made total sense to me. When I got older, I'm like, yeah, I'm not so sure about past lives because when you study quantum physics, there is no time. If there's no time, how can there be past lives? So I kind of lead towards the parallel existence because, according to those physicists, time folds on itself. So it seems like past. Also, our brains need structure. And that's what time is a structure. So I don't know if all how all that works. I know I've tuned into my other lives when I was at a point where it was showing me how to grow in that moment. Okay. So I've had those experiences too throughout time. But
Did your aunt get better as a result of the Casey?
no.
No, too
Well,
bad.
now see that he had I think like an 85% success rate. Um, but here's his explanation of why she had epilepsy. Back during the Revolutionary War, my grandfather, his wife, and my aunt um, were a family then too. My aunt was very psychic. My grandfather, and his personality was like this in this life as well. And this looks like a past life continuum because that's how Casey described it, right? And oh, and I want to add, Casey was very, very religious
Very. Yep.
and had a hard time accepting the past life perspective. So to me, that gives it a little more validity because he didn't want to believe this. But something happened in the process where he's like, yeah, okay, this makes sense. But during the Revolutionary War, my grandfather was very pro-British because he's like, whoever's in charge, they're right. And he was
Oh,
that way in this life to a large extent, at least my understanding of it, because he died when I was 13. So a lot of that is other people's perspectives. Um, she was psychic, his daughter in that life, and so he used her ability to get information about troop movements and stuff like that from of the revolutionaries and gave it to the British, which is not how you're supposed to use that gift, right? So this life and her having epilepsy and the family having to cope with it was the balancing of what was of the karma, the lesson to be learned, because that's literally what karma is, a lesson. It's not you screwed up, you're going to get punished. It's here's an opportunity to grow and learn. Use it.
use it.
Um, for that behavior or that life. Casey, because they asked, why isn't she improving? And in trance, he said, because the people around her do not believe in this. So their beliefs are dampening the healing process.
Oh, interesting.
And
Oh.
what we know now from research is, yeah, that makes sense. In quantum physics research and bless you. God bless you.
Whoa, thank you.
Psychological research on how all this works makes total sense. Quantum physics, you get the results you expect to get. Humans, our brains, our belief systems are based on our childhood experiences and interpretations. Kind of makes sense.
Kind of makes sense.
Now, how accurate it is, I don't know. That's just my window, right? So,
So in your story, you talk about that the path that you have is to facilitate people's awakenings. And how does that play out for you
well, nowadays,
nowadays?
nowadays, because I was very stubborn or determined, depends which side of the coin you want to look at, right? Um, one of the beauties of our minds is that anybody who's a parent knows this. When your child hits, nowadays it's 11. It used to be a little older when I was younger. But when your child hits a certain age, all of a sudden your IQ becomes around 25. I know I heard a lot of, it's different today, Mom. And I'm thinking people and their patterns don't really change unless they're doing that personal growth. So it's not different from that perspective, but they weren't able to hear it at that point. And isn't that what all our kids do? You have no clue what it's like today. It's like, yeah, basically, no, because I don't have the electronics you grew up with or stuff like that. I don't have the media that you're growing up with, but I can see the differences because I'm not stupid. Um, I'm sorry, I just blinked. What was
We
the
were
question
talking
again?
about facilitating people's awakenings.
Ah, I perceive it as planting seeds. We have to first recognize that there's an area of growth needed or wanted. Then we have to choose it. So I see me, I share who I am best I can. As a therapist, I share knowledge within the appropriate boundaries of being a therapist, right? With the NASW evidence-based type things, but it's still the same process, just a different structure that the information's being presented, right? That's with any version of interaction. We're planting seeds. First, a person has to know this isn't working for me. I'm not getting the results I want. Before they can get there, they have to learn how to be honest with themselves,
Yeah.
right? So there's
Hmm.
steps. I cannot impact anyone else. I cannot facilitate, well, I won't. I mean, I can certainly manipulate and try to control. In the big picture, it's very ineffective. Um, but again, anyone who's raised a teenager knows you can't control them, right? But
Right.
we can't be controlled either. So we can only control our own behavior. So I choose to present information. What people do with it is their choice. I pray. That's what happens when you have teenagers. You hold healthy boundaries, you work on cooperation, dynamics as opposed to control, and you pray 95%. That's what raising a teenager is. You pray that they don't hurt themselves in their process of exploring the world because their brain, the part that's developing is the limbic system. That's all about having a good time and feeling good. This prefrontal cortex that helps us make good choices, that's not fully developed. Latest research, it could change. That's not fully developed until we're 25 to 30.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah. I mean, how many times do we make decisions? Oh, that looks like fun. Let me go do it. Oh, yeah, I'll go shoot a gun at somebody. No awareness they can shoot back. But when you're in your later 20s, if that part of the brain develops, because we're kind of impacting that. The research shows certain drugs, um, RX as well as recreational, can mess up that process.
Hmm.
right? So there's a lot of factors on multiple levels. So, one, going back to the original question, you got to first realize that you want something different, which requires introspection and paying attention to your own life and the results you're creating. Next, you have to realize there's something more. That's where I and other people like me, and there's a lot of people out there. Actually, everyone can be your teacher.
Hmm.
You can learn from everyone. So it's not like I'm super special or anything like that. I've just chosen to be a little more upfront in my presenting information. Um,
Third is about being honest.
it helps. It helps. But it's honesty with yourself.
Yep.
And if you're honest with yourself, it's easier to be honest with others. If you don't give something to yourself, you can't give it to others. We think we are. Like, let's talk about kindness. A lot of people are kind, not because they particularly want to be kind, but because they've been taught you're supposed to be kind, but they're not kind to themselves. And typically, at least in my experience as a therapist, being kind to others or helping others, often at their own expense, is to get love, to feel loved. It doesn't work because if you're not loving yourself, you're not going to, it doesn't matter how much someone else, you'll understand it intellectually, but you'll never get it because you don't love yourself. So it all starts within.
Got it.
And then it's just a matter of going, oh, I want to improve here. How do I do that? Oh, I'm doing this. It's not serving me. How do I reduce that? So that's the
That's good.
analyzing part.
Got it. And we are bumping up against our time zone here.
Okay, well,
Um, so two questions.
uh-huh.
One is, um, what would you like to leave people with at the end of this interview?
Um, happiness is fleeting because that's based on human perspective, right? We all
Okay.
have our own definition of what makes us happy. If we get it, we're happy. If we don't get it, we're not. Go for peacefulness. That comes from being balanced, balanced with self-care and caring for others, etc. So that's really to go for peacefulness, being at
Peacefulness.
peace.
I love that, Sarah. Thank you. And how can people find out more about you and your work?
Well, I do have a website. I haven't worked on it at all because as my current job, I work about 60 hours a week. So it doesn't, and I'm exhausted. I'm too old, too old to work that much, I think. But I also help my daughter with the grandchildren, so that may have something to do with it too. But I haven't worked on the website in like 8 months. Um, but that's usually the most effective way. It's Blue, Blue, Panther, Panther, Illuminations, Illuminations.com. Um, there's a it's very rudimentary right now. There's some information on how the brain develops because I think the more we understand how our bodies and brains, we actually have three, according to current research, um, work, the more able the more skill set we're able to develop to create change for ourselves. It's kind of, I mean, it's like you want to make your washing machine more efficient, you got to understand how it works, right? So it's the
Right.
mechanics. That's free for everyone. I have been asked by numerous people to write my biography. That includes the NDEs, the SDE, the angel experiences. My life has been saved twice through angel being directed on what to do when I was being physically threatened. A lot, especially in my teens, dreams that educated me about a different perspective of how all this works. Um, I'm an intuitive, always has been. I used to be able, I learned how to block it, but I used to be able to hear people's thoughts. People think really, really loud sometimes. And
I
it's a
love that.
little
And they can find out,
distracting.
yeah, they can find out this information sort of
Yeah,
kind of
all of
on.
this. I do readings, but right now I'm not.
Hmm.
Now, I come from the perspective of let's analyze and figure out what you need to do to create what you want to create. I do not predict the future because the future is a probabilities game. One little blink of an eye, the butterfly effect changes
Yep.
everything.
Well,
Um, so
well,
yeah, they
Sarah,
can find out on the website.
website, bluepantherilluminations.com. Sarah Drake, you're a delight. Thank you
Well,
for being
thank
with
you.
us.
I
And for
enjoyed talking with you.
and for those of you watching still, stick around. I've got a couple of comments that I think you're going to enjoy. Sarah, thank you once again.
Thank you. You take care, Scott, and everybody else. Have a beautiful life.
Most of you know that I'm a big fan of binaural beats in learning how to raise our vibratory levels in order to enter into and hold expanded states of awareness. Sarah reminded me, well, frankly, all of us, that the old fashioned way has worked for millennia. Please use that too. Remember, take care of yourself and others. Don't hurt yourself and others. Use everything as a learning opportunity for growth and serve yourself and others. Nice to have you here on the Afterlife Files. We'll see you next time. Bye now.